What is up, everyone? And today we're going to be covering United States of America's artillery. So as you can see, the heavy artillery at the end, we're actually going to be starting over here on this end with the good old mortars. So first off, we have the good old 60mm mortar. This M2 mortar was actually used for platoon level and company level light artillery. So this bad boy was produced from 1940 to 1945, with 70,000 being produced. In the actual game, it has 140 range. It has 45 HE on the initial version, and then on the later version, it has carries only 38 HE and then some Willie Pete, some white phosphorus. So But as you can see, it's got a high fire rate, only 4.5 second reload. So although it is not super accurate, as you can see, you can start to zone in pretty quick on the cow. Luckily, he stayed alive this time. But this thing is pretty useful for quick fires. I personally don't like to use this one. I know it's very mobile, it's easy to use, and it's cheap. But I don't like to use a 6mm mortar because I like a little bit more bang for my buck. But it is a nice little mortar if you guys like something light. It's very easy to move around because that's what it's used for during World War II. Moving on to the 81mm mortar M1. So this thing was produced from 1935 to 1945 with 90,000 being produced. So the most produced mortar of World War II on the American side. Now this one carries 25 HE light, 5 HE heavy, and 10 Willie Pete white phosphorus. It's going to burn you up. Not going to make it be a good day for you. In addition, this thing has 160 range, so just a little bit further than its brethren, the 60mm. And it's got a 5 second reload, so it's right at 4.5 with the other one. So pretty cool. Nice little one. I like to use this one because it's got a little bit more bang for its buck. Has smoke version 2 that comes out that actually comes with 10 smoke instead of 10 Willie Pete. So you can trade out and actually use the mortar versus smoke, because if you don't want to be walking through white phosphorus if you can help it, because that's gonna, as you can see, it's gonna burn you up pretty good. You don't want that to happen, so make sure you're using the actual smoke version if you want to use smoke. Now this was the battalion level asset. This was more of a company. This is a battalion, and this one was mainly used for armor divisions, but we'll get into that in just now. Alrighty guys, so the 4.2 inch M2 mortar was used from 1942 till a little bit after, with 3,000 being produced. Such a good mortar was used after World War II. Now this one carries 15 HE shells and 5 white phosphorus, which is pretty thick, has a big boom, as you can see. It's more bang for your buck, 7 second reload, so it's still pretty quick, and it's got a 180 range, so we got a 140, 160, 180. So this is your heaviest mortar. You can have less rounds, but it is going to be able to do some serious damage, as we can see here. Now this mortar was used for battalions attached sometimes to infantry companies, but mainly used for armor, for heavy artillery to fight with the armor and move up with them. Next one we got is a 75mm M1A1. Now, the first version is using the M8 carriage, and the second version is using the M3A3 carriage. So as you can see, the carriages were designed a little bit differently. This one was designed to be a little bit more mobile, and to also have a gun shield to kind of protect the crew. This one was a little bit more light, but it didn't have the same design, and the Americans decided to go with the split design eventually. So for the range, these guys have a range of 170 for high explosives and Willie Pete, and 160 for their heat rounds, which their heat rounds can get through 91mm of armor, which is pretty dang impressive when you think about it, because it can get through, technically that could get through certain parts of, I mean, any Panzer IV is gonna be able to easily get through that, and side shots on Tigers, you can kill that with this as well. Pretty cool. It's got 34 HE, H heat, and 8 heat and 8 white phosphorus. Now this early version can actually be used in the irregular doctrine in mid and late war, and this one can be used in all round during late war. So just a fun fact where you can see there's a multiplayer, and I would recommend using these. They're nice howitzers, nice easy light howitzers to bring in. I like to use these in Conquest a little bit. They're not bad. So for this first one was built from 1927 to 1945. About 6,500 were produced, and they were liked by the troops because they're super light. They could be dropped with the airborne troops, and they could be broken down into pieces actually and taken in the mountains as well. So very effective and could be carried by mules pretty easy. Now this one just made it even more efficient to carry this bad boy around. About 4,000 of these were produced from 1942 to 1945. And these were actually the weapons that were used. These are the weapons that are used on the M8 Scott, which you can see in my other video that's linked below or above. And they're also used on some of the half-tracks. Pretty cool. Next one is also a 75. So this is 75 millimeter model 1897 A4. So this was actually the main field gun for the United States of America during World War I. They had a short service in World War I, but they did serve in World War I. So this was French. It was produced from 1918 to 1942, basically on a French contract. About 5,000 of these bad boys were produced. And it was used as a field gun in early World War II, and it was actually used, fun fact, as the main gun for the M3 Lee and the M4 Sherman early on, until they got the upgraded ones. So this thing had quite the service history with the Americans. So it's got a range of 190 with armor piercing and high explosive, with the armor piercing able to get through 65 millimeters armor. Not bad for 1941, of course. And then carries 19 armor piercing and 30 high explosive. So this thing is not a bad weapon, especially for mid-war. It's not a bad weapon at all. I think we just pierce. I don't know if we just killed that cow. They're not moving, so I'm just going to assume that they're static. Yeah. The cows are static. Cannot be killed. Good to know. It's a cool little gun. I don't personally like using this one, but I mean, if you want to use it, then it's all up to y'all guys if you want to use it. I do like its history, and it was used on the M3 Lee and Sherman, so that's pretty cool. But let's go ahead and move on to the next powerful beast. The 105 howitzer M2A1. Now this is what you think of when you think of U.S. artillery in World War II. When I see this bad boy, I just think of U.S. artillery. That's all I think of. This thing was made from 1941 all the way to 1953, with 10,000 being produced in World War II, and an additional 60,000 being produced after World War II, with a total of 70,000. Was used in pretty much every post-war. Pretty cool beast though. It was used mainly as the standard divisional artillery. This thing was a beast. I do like using it. It just sounds good all around. It looks good. It got a nice gun shield. It has a range of 360 with high explosive and 170 with heat. It has a heat round. So that's pretty cool. It can get through 128 millimeters of armor. So if a tiger charges this thing and it happens to just be in the wrong place at the wrong time, tiger's going down, because this thing is a big ass gun and it's got a lot of the penetration with its heat rounds. So in a shitty situation when you're getting charged by tanks with your artillery, not ideal, of course, but if it does happen, then just know that you can get through 128 millimeters of armor if needed. Pretty awesome for this little gun, or big gun. It carries 20 high explosive, 5 heat, and 5 will heat, and it's got a 15-second reload, which is not bad. I would highly recommend bringing these to Conquest, because they're pretty sick. You can get these in multiplayer as well if you just save up enough manpower. Personally, I wouldn't spend it though, because I would rather spend stuff on tanks and armored cars, because they're more effective. Look at that cow taking that shot. Not a real cow, which is good, because who don't want to kill cows. Next one is the M3, also a 105. So this one was actually just a condensed version of the 105. It was made from 1943 to 1945 for airborne troops, and mainly came down in gliders. It was used in Normandy and operations afterwards, but it just gave them a pretty heavy howitzer to use. Had a little bit shorter range of 315. But this is pretty much the same, yes, exact same loadouts. A little bit shorter range, 315. Got the same heat round for 170 range, 15-second reload. Both got cruise of 4. Only difference is, obviously, only a few of these were made when a ton of these guys were made. But still effective gun. It's also available in a regular doctrine, both mid and late war. So it's a nice little, nifty little weapon. Pretty mid-range artillery, and this one's pretty effective. This is like, if I want an artillery gun, this is what I want mass-produced. This thing's freaking amazing. Moving on to the end of the line, we have the 4.5-inch gun M1. So this thing is pretty cool as well. It's produced from 1942 to 1945. Only 400 of them are actually produced. Not entirely sure why not that many were produced, but it kind of looks janky, so that's probably why it got a lot going for it. But as you can see, it's got some big ass shells. Now this thing's going to come equipped with 20 high explosive. Obviously it has one in the chamber, so technically 21 for this, and it is a big gun. You can get this in the mid and late war with a regular doctrine, and it has a range of, here is the big part, 455 meters. 455 meters, and this thing, while it lacks anti-tank defense, it's going to be able to reach out and touch enemy artillery. It is not the most, it's not the most accurate, so that's a little bit, can be a little bit concerning if you're trying to use this for counter barrage, but it is, it's not bad overall. We're at 96. Let's get out to the outfield, you know. Let's get out to where he's going to be shooting at. So as you can see, it's got a pretty big spread, you know. Pretty big spread. If I'm aiming for that artillery, it's going to have time to pack up and go. The reload on this one is only, 20 seconds, so about 5 seconds longer than the 105. It is a nice gun. Good for bombarding enemy positions, but not my go-to. You know, I like the 105. The 4.5 inch is a unique gun, and it's pretty cool, but it's not the weapon of my choice. You know, once again, a regular mid and late war. And let's move on to the Schneider. All right, so we get the 155 millimeter howitzer, model 1917. So this was actually based on another French design. You know, Americans based a lot of things on French designs, built on license, built from 1917 to 1918 from the French. About 600 were produced on license. And one cool thing about this is it actually set the basis for the 155 rounds that would be used by the rest of the, a lot of the U.S. artillery. So this thing actually became, it helped the U.S. standardize their ammo for the rest of the wars. And as you can see, very big explosion, 360 meter range with high explosive. Carries 10 high explosives, got 30-second reload, and it's available for a regular for mid-war. Not a bad thing for if you're gonna use it in mid-war, but anything else you can upgrade. We'll talk about it. It's got a nice little gun shield, and it can be transported around, but you know, it's kind of meh. It's got not bad range, but I mean, the 360 range, I got the 105 for that, so might as well do that. But it's a cool little World War I iconic gun. Next, we're going to move on to the 155 howitzer M1. So this is basically, they took this and they upgraded it for World War II. Now, this bad boy was made from 1942 to 1953, right? 10,000 were produced during World War II, and it was actually renamed the M114 after the war. So pretty cool. The big thing about this one is it got 405 range, so this one's a little more bang for your buck. So I like that one because, you know, if I'm gonna have a howitzer, you know, I want it to be able to reach out and touch somebody. Now you're gonna have the same pretty much effect, but this thing is longer range, and that's what I like, longer range. Between these three, I would definitely take the M1 because why not? You know, this one's got the best bang for your buck. This one's available to offensive mid and late war as an option, so you can have artillery in that doctrine. This badass looking thing. It's got 10 high explosive, 3 Willie Pete, and 3 smoke as well. So not many of the U.S. howitzers have smoke. So if you want to play some smoke down, this is your guy. Now he's gonna have a decent reload. He's got about 30-second reload, so it's going to take a little bit for them to get the round in. That's magical in air. As you can see, it is just air. But with 405 range, it's going to be more than enough to get you a couple rounds out and probably kill some enemy artillery. So I do like this this one. Next, we're going to move on to the French, another French-based weapon. All right, so this was built in, it's a 155, as you can see, 155 GPF model 1918 M1. So this was produced from 1918, no big shocker, to 1919. Only about 200 of these were made on license from the French. As you notice, the Germans have this. You can see the German artillery video above, but the Germans also have this bad boy. It has a range of 445 meters, which is pretty dang far. So for an old beast of a gun, it can go range pretty far. And then once again, of course, this gun's always going to remind me of the COD 2 mission, where you have to go blow them up for the beachhead, because these were at I believe it's .2 Hawk. They had a bunch of these. I don't know if they actually had them, but in the mission they had them. This thing does have a 10 high explosive. It was mainly used in North Africa really in the Pacific for heavy artillery, but then it got outclassed by these bad boys we're going to talk about next. You can get this from all around doctrine in the mid-war. The late war, you're not going to have it because, we were using bigger and better things, but it is a nice effective weapon. If you manage to capture some from the Germans that they're using, I would definitely pick these guys up. But I wouldn't go after just this. It's not a bad weapon, but not something you just want to buy outright. So now we're moving on to the beasts. So last but not least, we had the 155mm gun M1A1 long tom. Now these guys are kind of a legend because they are extremely high range and they're just overall pretty badass. I really didn't know about the long toms until I played Company Heroes 2 and then Gates of Hell. But these things are freaking sick. I like using them quite a bit in Conquest. They can be effective in multiplayer as well. So this got 505 range. 505 range. Which is pretty insane for an artillery piece. It's going to be able to compete with most all German artillery. I think there might be one that outranges it, but everything else you're going to be able to be within range, which is pretty amazing. Now, this thing has 505 range for high explosive, 220 range for armor piercing. It carries an armor piercing round that has 128 millimeters of penetration, which is freaking crazy. Now, you can see... As you can see, this high explosive round, look how accurate. Oh, excuse me. My goodness, I was wondering. That's the armor piercing round. The high explosive round is fairly accurate if you look at this. Let's go ahead and move this around. Compared to the other artillery, this thing can actually zone in quite a bit. So we're firing at 304. It's we're not fully at max range, but if we're aiming for enemy artillery and we're trying to hit them at max range, it's not that bad of a target, honestly. As you can see, it narrows in. Now you might not get the first shot, but the second shot's most likely going to be on target. So the long tom is a pretty effective thing. It was known for its accuracy. Now these are produced from 1941 to 1945, and these formed the heaviest artillery that the United States carried. About 2,000 being produced, and they were mainly used as counter artillery to take out German artillery, and they were very effective at their job because they were notable for being very accurate. I do think they could be a little bit more accurate in game, but at the same time, you got to make up for balance, and it is pretty accurate in general. So this version carries 10 high explosive, 3 white phosphorus, and 3 armor piercing. And the second version carries 10 high explosive, same as 3 smoke and 3 armor piercing. So this one just has smoke shells instead of white phosphorus. So the armor piercing shell is pretty impressive, and this thing's available to defensive both mid and late war. So if you do have one of these and you go defensive, then you can take out pretty much everything, because mid-war the Germans are going to have tanks that only have a range of like 210. So you could technically keep this thing up, load some armor piercing, and you could take out a Tiger frontally, no problems. And this thing, they would just murder the Tiger, and there's nothing the Tiger can do about it, which is pretty sick. It is a little bit dangerous using these bad boys on the front lines, even at 220, but it can be done, and can be effective. They're mainly carried by these M5 high-speed artillery tractors, which are pretty cool little things. They could hook them up and carry them to safety wherever they needed to go. So pretty cool and effective little things. But last but not least, we still have the 8-inch howitzer, the M1. Now this thing is even bigger, okay? So there it goes. It's all hooked up. Those guys are just hanging on for dear life. But this howitzer was made from 1940 to 1945. Only about 1,500 remain, not that many, but it actually served to the 1990s, this thing did. Now, this thing was giant, so it was used to level the Siegfried line that the Germans had set up on the Rhine, and it was effective. It has 425 range, so it's pretty good artillery range, but it also is it can lay waste to... Look at that. Look at that explosion. It can lay waste to so much. It can blow up entire blocks, actually entire buildings very easily. Now it only carries high explosive, and it has 70-second reloads. Long toms, these guys got 60-second reloads, so you just got to be aware of that. These guys are going to take a whole minute to reload. This thing takes just over a minute, 70 seconds. But it's also available to the defensive and mid and late war. You can choose between the 105s, the 155s, and the 8-inch mortar. Or excuse me, 8-inch howitzer. But these things are very, very effective, and I like seeing them. Show up because you don't see them enough in multiplayer. A lot of people think they need a buff, but I like them. All right. If you guys learned anything from this, please leave a like, subscribe, and if you want to see more and you want to see different guys, comment below, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.